Hi guys, Lataria checking in. I wanted to create a video today following up from a post that I created and posted to my Instagram account yesterday morning. It was the post that was inspired by a chapter in my book, Bloom. And the chapter that I'm referencing is titled Red Bows and Hair Ties. And in this particular post, I just go to talk about the need for us to acknowledge the little boy or the little girl that resides inside of us. For so many of us, there is a hurt or sad, disappointed, abused little boy or little girl that, rears their head in our daily adult lives. And oftentimes we wonder why, our relationships aren't thriving, why perhaps we aren't thriving, whether it be intimate relationships, the relationship that we have with ourselves, business, friendships, parental relationships, any type of dynamic, oftentimes aren't thriving due to issues internally that we have yet to address, right? And so just talking about acknowledging the little boy or the little girl is me basically saying acknowledging the pain or the abuse, the trauma that may have been inflicted upon you, in your early years as a child. Being better, doing better, healing, it lies in the ability of us having the ability to understand and know how to get to the root of our issues, like dig in and really get into the root. We live in a society, this Western society, where the theme really is quick fixes. It's common, to put a bandage over a wound, something that requires surgery. But, we're looking for quick fixes, temporary fixes, and with that you see the same issue, the same problem is going to reoccurring until we really dig and get to the root of it and figure out why the problem keep manifesting itself to begin with. So tying that back to acknowledging the little girl or the little boy, or whatever pain, whatever trauma, whatever drama that you may have experienced. The thing with children is that children don't typically know how to articulate themselves, express their emotions. They're really oftentimes immature in their ability to identify certain emotions, to then even be able to articulate that to an elder, a parent, a guardian, etc. And so what happens with children is, because they don't know how to express themselves, they don't know how to identify what it is that they're feeling on the inside, they compress, they suppress, they go silent, they don't say anything. They don't say anything, and it could be something just really bad happening, or something very small that is going on in a child's world, something emotionally, something physically, abuse, etc., that a child may be experiencing, but because they don't know how to verbally express it. Sometimes you may see, a child using nonverbal expression as a way to kind of express themselves, but oftentimes with children, they just don't say anything. What happens is time goes on, life goes on, a year, 2 years, 10 years, and before you know it, you wake up, you're 20, you're 25, you're 30, you're 40 years old, and you have all of this trauma, all of this stuff that you've suppressed, but it keeps rearing its head, it keeps manifesting in your relationships in different ways. And I'll give you a perfect example. Knowing what I know now, I'll give you an example of how the little girl in me once upon a time was rearing its head. Knowing what I know now, I can look back and I can identify, what it was that, was actually taking place. I was involved with a guy. We were seeing each other. We were at a distance. He was in one state, I was in another state. We saw each other frequently, whether it was in my state or his state. We would see each other. We would have a good time. We would explore. We would enjoy each other's company, each other's companionship. We would have a blast. We would have a blast, but then when it was time for me or him to depart, so many times I had this feeling of sadness, and it's like, wait a minute, why are you sad? You just had an amazing time, you just had fun, you ate, you drank, you laughed, you danced, etc. Like, why are you sad? And sometimes I would feel so sad, I would feel so empty that I would be crying, Knowing what I know now, I'm able to look at the younger me and see how the little girl was rearing its head. And in those particular instances where, I was having a hard time departing, that was the little girl in me that had the abandonment issues with her dad, that had the lack of security and insecurities as a child, never really knowing when dad was coming or going, and then when he left, not knowing when he was going to come back. And so the little girl in me was still seeking security, was still acting out on the abandonment issue. So here it is, I'm an adult, I'm a full-grown adult, and this little girl is still rearing her head in my adult life, in my personal relationships. So here it is, I'm involved with a man, we are at a distance, right? We come together, but when it's time to leave, I'm feeling that feeling of abandonment. Like he hasn't abandoned me. It's time to go our separate ways. But here it is, that little girl in me that's still demanding to be seen and felt and heard and reassured is resurfacing, continuing to resurface. And so that's just like one small example, but that's an example of how the child in us, the child who hasn't been reassured, the child who wasn't protected, or the little girl who didn't have the security, etc. The list goes on. That's an example, one small example of how that can manifest itself in your daily adult life and relationships, right? So in the post, that's exactly what I'm speaking to. And in this particular chapter in the book, I'm speaking to, acknowledging that hurt, acknowledging that little girl or that little boy who experienced all these things that they were never giving the space to express. Again, children don't really know how to express their emotions. So as an adult, sidebar, as an adult, we have to create the space for our children to express themselves and give them the tools, give them the language, give them the resources so that they know how to do that, so that they feel comfortable expressing themselves, so that they know that when something starts to feel wrong on the inside or something is happening, that they have the security, and the space that they need as a child, the reassurance, from their parent that it's safe for them to use their voice, to verbalize with their words, like this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through. And so, the now adult, a lot of psychologists and therapists practice this, with acknowledging the little girls. Some would encourage you to write letters, to simply have a conversation with your younger self and to reassure your younger self that you're not alone, that you are protected, that you are covered, and that you don't have to worry, you don't have to, feel what you've been feeling. Like, I got you, I got this, and you're safe. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the healing journey. That is one step and one way that's going to allow us to step into our greatest selves and be our greatest selves, and really heal from the baggage and the trauma and the things, the pain, the sadness, the disappointment, the anger that we may have felt as a very, very young child but never knew how to express. So again, just to circle back, this was inspired by my Instagram post, just acknowledging the little girl or the little boy inside of you, because so many people, so many adults are walking around and this little girl is still showing up, still showing up, demanding to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, and they show up, and sometimes very inconvenient situations, inconvenient times, but will continue to show up until you acknowledge that little girl, until you acknowledge it and give yourself, your younger self, the security that you need to, again, then be able to stand in your fullness as an adult, heal, be whole, be happy, and just move and live from a different space. So again, this was inspired by an entire chapter in my book Bloom. Again, it was called hair bows and red ties, and that's funny because I actually have this red bow in my hair. That was not done on purpose. But thanks for watching this video. Like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I will be posting, a bunch more content. But again, thank you for watching this. If this is your thing, if this is what you're into, stay tuned, share it, and just, be blessed and enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey.